So hey, today to continue the series of tutorial, I will go over the MLK job with IT. It was a run with for Mesmer. The MLK job by now it's very standard, and I think most guild play it almost exactly the same. There's some guild though that take the imlat instead of EE. I think it's more rare now than it used to be, but overall it's roughly the same ID everywhere. It's So MLK is quite interesting. I think it's a very interesting job. You have a bit different bar, although the base is always searching it Bistros, but you have the backfire empathy, and those are two skills that are quite particular to use because they both cost a lot of energy, especially backfire with 15 energy, but it deal a tremendous amount of damage. For instance, backfire is 245 damage, I think, with the lunar and everything, which is absolutely crazy. On a caster though, empathy is like 90 something per hit if it's not exactly 90, and although it lasts quite long, so if it's for instance a vu or and he keep hitting as soon as it did to it, it's the more damage than an e-surge would do, or roughly the same. uh, so it's a very interesting bar, quite particular to use, and I think can, depending on the experience of the mesmer, can be played very differently, very different level of quality. So now you go on, put your Mistrust because you have it and it does 245 damage. It's pretty crazy. One of them, or maybe not 245, but something 200 something at least. We'll see it right away. That's why I did ping the Dabby. Again, we're on TeamSpeak. I told them, oh, I take the Dabby so the other guys can go on the Sue. Um, yeah, okay. 182 damage indeed. Yeah, it's not 200 damage. I was a bit off there. Um, So that wasn't a very good spike either. Should have died much faster, but regardless. Um, So yeah, nothing very special there. We spike. So at this point, that's where there's MLK actually have to do a job and can make a difference. So at this point, when you enter the room, you really want to put your backfire as soon as possible on the key. There's few exceptions because you will see in this case, it was in and might not have been necessary to put backfire, but I still put it. The reason is that I don't have imlat, so it can be hard to control the depth of the key because otherwise, like, let's say you have Imlad, he goes very low HP, and then at this point you can KD to like have the recast of research and then kill him to be safe. In this case, it can be hard, and he might like be at 10% HP and boom, start healing himself, and you will end up still having to put the backfire to kill it fast. But regardless, I did put backfire. It was also a reflex. You can even put empathy on either the Vu or the rune if they are out. Obviously, you do a bit of damage in this room because you do a lot of single target, but it all help make the run very fast. Um, it was a very good spawn regardless, so it was easy. Same thing here. You can very like when you have a drider, sorry, that is out, you really want to put your backfire there. I should have put my backfire faster on the leftmost rider because it wouldn't take the group damage, the area damage. And empathy is also very strong on the dreamy. Same thing for Wishroll, not as strong obviously, but quite strong on the dreamy as well because they will generally be KD'd with people that have Imlad, and also they will often have Mistrust up, so they won't necessarily cast too much kill, and Wishroll can be useful on them. Regardless, prioritize your Mistrust, Sea Surge, Signet, and maybe Backfire. So at this point, I should have went a bit earlier, definitely on the Drider. So again, that was for my damage. It was definitely better to go on the main ball, but for the overall team, it wasn't better. As you can see, Backfire just there, even though I put it very late, still did about 500 damage, 2 times 245. So that gives you an idea of the power of these heals. If I put it early, probably would have done 750 damage. Another Backfire trigger. So same thing at this point, you go generally on the Drider, and then if there's a Drider that's very out, I don't think that was the case much here, but it can be indeed interesting to put your backfire if there's one that is very much out. Um, oh yeah. So So it's a bit similar in this room. There will be a key, so you want to target it and to backfire. Normally, so with IT, it probably wasn't the case in the other video, but now we did change a bit the room for to make it a bit more consistent. And what we do is that we enter, but don't push too much right away. We look the spawn, and depending on the spawn, we will either choose to push right away or to let the TT pull to ensure we don't have very spread out first spawn or first ball rather. Um, but at this point, obviously, they spawn very close, so we have the aggro, and when they spawn that close, the jury will never unball because the mesmer will get in their range. It's a bit it's not a very exact science, but yeah. So at this point, put backfire on the key, very useful, and then a bit sad, got kitty on the mistrust, but again, you want to put your mistrust and your skills. Depending, in some cases, it might happen that the key is very much in the ball, but there's one driver that is completely out. In this case, it might be better to indeed put the backfire on the driver that is out rather than the key. Um, so yeah. This point, nothing very special, just spike. Probably don't want to use your echo on the first ball, the second you can. Yeah. Quite interesting to use your echo on this ball because it should be up for the next one. But yeah, nothing. So same thing at this point, there's a key. Normally the key will be in because we let the TT do a ball. But if it's not in, or if the driver it's not in, very interesting, put your backfire on the guys that is out. It does a tremendous amount of damage. Um, Okay, so at this point, very small thing. So there's a tactic as TT where you can put recall on a mesmer or whatever, someone that is running away. Then you tell, and then you go exactly where the despair die. The fury will stay on you. Everyone run away, and then you break recall, and you can just break the fury very easily. So you don't necessarily have to kill them. For sure, if the Fury are running everywhere, I think it's very important as a team that either someone speak out or that's a just a exact rule where you kill them because it's very very fast to kill them. It's still a casual. You don't win much by not killing them, and it just makes everything much better because as MLK they will follow you if they're running everywhere. I choose to kill them because I just wanted to have a bit more damage, but yeah. So at this point, small thing. It's very important to not take the quest at this, guys. You want to take the first quest. I didn't mention it at the beginning, but you really want to take the first quest in Foundry. At this point, you can take the reward, but don't take the quest. The reason is that if the three snake are taken and there's one of this snake that die, except general, so either Silges or the other guys that I have no idea, don't remember his name. Kind of bother me that I don't remember his name, but regardless. So if one of the of the snake that is not the general die after the three snake are taken, normally it's fail, and the quest will indeed tell you that it was a fail. But if you kill the arg, he will still spawn. So if you kill arg and the snake settle, you can go back. Someone that didn't take the quest can take the quest, and then he will be able to take the reward, and the team will be able to keep going. So it can avoid some resign. Um, so for and it's your job as the MLK to not take the quest. So at this point, you go on, you follow to the right. So now we'll just explain in the meantime the ping. So the idea is that there's some NPC in Guild Wars that follow a team member that have that is pinging, so targeting him up, focusing, whatever. And the way you ping, very important, control shift space. The normally control space attack, control shift space will make you not move toward the target, which make the pinging much easier. You want to ping before the snake is taken. At this point, I could already be pinging. The reason I don't is that I don't want to make the trench tank maybe believe that he can already take the snake. He should wait a bit, although it's not a big problem if he does it. And I will start pinging as soon as the general is taking is take. But you have to be a bit careful and still look the quest, if you see that the TT is breaking and will be taking the quest, you should start pinging. Just because you don't want the snake to start running around in this area or attacking or something. It can be quite risky for him. Note that another thing. So you see, whenever the general is taken, I start pinging as well. And yeah, the captain, right? Captain was the last thing. So now at this point, again, very important, especially if you should be on TeamSpeak with the trench tank. He might tell you, oh, the snake is stuck. And it might happen that it's stuck, such as if you move to the north, he will be able to go around. Generally, if he was able to pull far enough with his SOH, there's not much risk at this point for Silgest. If there's no Titan, he has a pretty long life expectancy at this point. Expecting, expect, well, whatever. And so you can definitely run to the either maybe to the north or maybe you run a bit to the east. It's a bit risky to run to the east because the other snake might get enraged and run through the middle. But going to the north is completely safe. So again, necessary to have talk with him. But you see, that's not a problem. It's just running. So at this point, you run there. So now I did make a mistake. I wasn't paying attention at all during the run at this point, and the general was stuck. When it's stuck, you don't run too much forward. You can run pretty much up to there, not much. And the reason is that if you keep going forward, it will trigger ARG. And when it trigger arc, the Titan will start moving forward. Arc won't be spawned and won't leave as much space for the IU to go in. He might get stuck. He might aggro on someone else. Might aggro on the EOE. So it's generally like a good thing to not trigger it. It make it much easier for the IU, although it's not that much of a big deal. So regardless, there was also I think the monk did trigger as well, but I was the one triggering there, so definitely a mistake. So you wait there, and the TT will break it with a speed boost. Although if you see that the monk keep following, that's not a problem at this point because they would go back before the trench tank break. But at this point, you can still play safe and trigger. So that was definitely a mistake. Note though, if for instance one snake is stuck and dying, like especially if the third snake is stuck and is dying, you will start going to the snake with the quest at the beginning of the room 5 to take the quest. Although very important, when you do that, don't take the quest right away. You wait until the team tell you that you can do it, and you can do it when the snake settle after killing Orc. If you take the snake before that, it won't work and it will be fail. So at this point, so again, maybe a bit risky to put the EOE because of the reason I explained. And since I was aware of that, you can see I won't follow too much. I will move a bit more to the right. And the reason is that I know the IU doesn't have as much space. I maybe should have actually said it on TeamSpeak, though maybe I did, not sure. And you will see what the mob do. They overrun at the beginning. They always do that. And someone take the aggro. And that was completely because of the early trigger. If the early trigger wasn't there, that would have happened. So it's obviously we lose time because the snake don't settle. You see the IU is waiting. There was a RUP on ARG, which is the IU did his job, but sometimes he does forget when that kind of thing happened. So at this point, I was like, oh, I will take the quest with the dialogue, which is a bit dumb because obviously I don't have the quest, and wherever it's cheating, right? So yeah, you see like just an early trigger there because I wasn't paying attention did lose us quite a lot of time, maybe 20 seconds or so. So small detail. So at this point, you can even pop a ghost in the box. We'll call it the flow tactic. And you go on and spike. Um, Nothing very particular. Very important though, maybe at this time is it's for every job actually, but you really want to. Okay, first of all, you don't want to stick, and that's something I think point out a few different places in the run. It's quite dangerous to go on in some cases something that come with the experience to stick a group of mob because for instance at this point the TT might fail and they might overrun a bit, and if you stick that will completely break because that will really um, destroy the spike. And so at this point, it's clear that the mob won't overrun. So at this point, I move forward. And again, I don't start spiking earlier. I really let the Vor go first. Very important. Moreover, I do optimize for Fury, and you should do it, the range. So instead of just clicking on E-Surge and running in, to put E-Surge, it will run it much closer. But if you go by walking manually, you can have actually a longer spike range. So that's obviously something very basic game mechanic, but it's useful to know. So it was a very good ball. Also, as Mesmer, we don't want to be on each other to avoid meteor shower, and so on and so forth. To all die together. So we just spike. It was could have been a better spike, but it wasn't too bad. And so at this point, I did explain a technique as monk, where like you can see the TT is recalling the monk. The monk will go EE on this on the snake, take the quest. While he's doing that, the TT can put uh, shadow form and shroud, break recall, and start pulling right away. You can, for instance, if the monk is in there, is not aware of tactic, is waiting on foundries, DC, or something, you can do the job because you have EE if you're first. So small thing to be aware of. If you're first, you see TTs a bit before, you can let him recall you, and you can save time overall. Obviously, it's not part of your job, but something more you can do for free, and especially with experience, it will come. So same thing there. See, I don't stick too close. I always see I stop there. I give them enough space because if they break, I won't have enough time to react, and we can lose a lot of time. They can break, for instance, because the tank still had a speed boost, and and choose to start running forward a bit because it's ending, and no won't break he won't break the aggro. So there's a lot of reason. Just play safe. Don't need to stick like crazy. Small thing at this point you can know because I was looking, but it does happen like if if the tank take the group ball. So I won't go over what is taking a group ball in this video, although it's probably explained in the trench tank video or main tank. But if you take them ball, you don't want to go through like I would do. I will point that out. You will wait a bit to make sure they won't break. Yeah. So you can also ask the tank if they are. So you can always play safe and wait a bit there because if they are ball, the tank break there, they might actually run back to the south and you will take the aggro. See, at this point, it's very close by and you break at the same moment. If they were ball, I would have probably taken the aggro, but I was aware, I was paying attention to that. So at this point, you will do the Sue. The reason you do the Sue is because the monk will put Iwi. You want only to put it under 90% HP, and when the main group is dying, it will die with Iwi, so you will save a bit of time, a bit of energy, a bit of everything. Small thing to be aware of. You see that that group is actually running away. The top group there just ball up, so they ball up now and they run away. So very important, it might happen that this group it's much closer to the Sioux. And if it's that's the case and they are still like patrolling around, you don't want to start attacking the Sioux right away. The reason is that there's some mob in this group, might have a derv or maybe it's random, but they have a key for sure that will go and heal. So let them ball, maybe let them start running away and then go on them. If it's not the case like now and they are pretty far, I start and I just go and put backfire right away. If you have to wait and you will be late for this spike, that's not a big deal. It's much more important to do the off damage there than having a fourth mesmer on the spike. Having three mesmer is completely enough. So in this case, if you're a bit late, instead of putting the backfire, you can split by just using E-Surge Signet because it's more instant damage, and then go on the and then don't go on the main ball. So at this point, I was in a prime. I got KD, I got yeah, a bit of lag, then KD again. So I was completely useless on this ball. You see, it wasn't a big deal. It's completely enough to spike. So at this point, I choose to put empathy on the Mank, especially if you are not experienced. Maybe don't do that because it's like 10 or probably 14 with the QZ energy. Is it 40% more energy? I think it is, but still about more energy. And obviously, it's very important to do energy management in the wild, and I will go a bit more in detail how to do that because it can tremendously change the amount of time it takes to do the wall. But since I'm experienced, I noticed that they were still a bit close. I choose to put the empathy to help the other mesmer. So at this point, the tactic. So first of all, by now it's generally quite easy or much easier than it used to be because the monk has PI. Sometimes some tactic the monk didn't have PI, so you have to deal all the damage yourself. But now you will generally be helped by the monk. Moreover, in our tactic, the monk is often playing with aura of stability that you can see I have there. So that's very great. If you have aura stability as a MLK and moreover you have the monk helping it, it's a free wall. There's no difficulty whatsoever. If it's not the case, you have to be a bit careful with the KD because if you get KD on the backfire, that can completely change the wall because it's a 19, no, it's probably 21 energy that is waste. And also you have the recast and it slow everything down. So the way you proceed is that generally you go max target to the Su to make sure he doesn't aggro you. Put the backfire, so that I would definitely overrun. And I wonder if it was because of the ping because we were playing in America for some reason. It's kind of strange that I did overrun that. Okay, you see? Okay, back. Okay, that's normal. Yeah, I think that's that because you can see at the moment I cast backfire, I would assume that I would stop if I had the low ping, but I didn't stop and yeah, right away. But regardless, not a big deal. You generally have plenty of time to put your skill. So at this point, you put your backfire and then you start moving forward. Very important, don't waste energy putting E-Surge or even a Signet. The reason is that generally speaking, enemy will never kill himself when he has backfire. Meaning, if you put empathy on the melee and he can attack until he's dead. It's not the case for backfire. If the mob know he will die by using his skills, he won't use his skills. Now there's a one exception, which is the mob doesn't take for account some bonus damage like the Lightbringer, which means that in some small range of HP can indeed cast a skill and die. So now, because of that, I move to the next Su. I don't get into his range. I move only to the next Su, and I put a backfire. So now that's the moment it's important. You're still under the first Su range, so you can get kitty. So what you can do is as soon as you cast your backfire on the first Su, you tab to target the next Su and you pick it. Then you move forward and you keep the target on the first Su. And whenever you see he's either starting to cast a skills, which is not Gale, or that he just cast Gale, you can then put the backfire on the next two because you won't get KD. Now, as soon as I put backfire on the next two, I look the first one and I finish it with my E-Search. And then I keep moving forward this way. So it's just a trick to get. So backfire max range, move forward, ping the next two, then target back the first one. As soon as you see that he used scale like he just did, put your backfire, target back the first Su, put signet, and he will die. Now, very important at this point, put when it's done, you want to put your empathy on the last mank. Very useful during at this point. The mesmer might not have much energy. Maybe the vor will leave a bit earlier, especially you have to put Iwi. In our case, not the case, but very useful. Empathy does a tremendous amount of damage on the mank. And then again, I let the Su cast until he's low HP and finish it with E-Search. Very important. Try to finish with, a Signet, not E-Search, to save some energy. So at this point, you go on the spike, do the spike, nothing special. Now, I did explain that's not exactly your job, but you have EE, it's for free. You can do it even if you don't have EE. You let the empty jump out of you. Um, And you see the TT the MT, will troll them. They will both E, so we can laugh at them and point them. And then, yeah, you E through. Since both of them waste their EE, I stayed in range so they can EE me, avoid losing time. So, good quality meme there. So at this point, I'm not quite sure why I didn't went with Echo. Might have been a bit off. But generally, you want to use Echo Research at this point because it will still be cast on. It will still be on up. Sorry for the next spike, the Echo. But for some reason, I went with Mistrust. It's definitely not a big deal. Might even be better to go with Mistrust. I don't play enough Mesmer to have the best call there. Or didn't do any computation, so don't have any evidence to support it. But regardless, it's not a big deal. Still about the same. Although if obviously if you put Mistrust, put it on on the caster, not on melee. So again, that's very interesting because it's exactly what I mentioned in Foundry. You see, at this point, you will see all the experience well, so 3 out of the 4 Mesmer will stop running. And the reason, see, run, and I don't go and stick like Certify just did there. And the reason is that again, mob can have certain paths that are a bit strange. It might happen that the mob overrun and then go back. And if you're too close, you might take the aggro, and that can be very risky. So give enough space until it's obvious what the mob will do. So at this point, you see they didn't overrun too much, and as soon as you see that they stop there, you know at this point they will run on the tank, and then and hence you can start moving forward. So obviously it comes with experience, those kind of stuff, a bit feeling how the mob move and react. So see at this point I move forward. So again, it's useless to stick too much the tank, give him enough space to to move. Because if you take the aggro early, especially with the new AI, well, new AI since 2 years, it might be a bit bad because they will all turn around. So again, I let the TT HOS out of me. I EE him. Often the IU will call someone to HOS him. It's really not your job to stay for the HOS, and the IU should be aware of that. It might be worth to tell the IU, especially if he's calling you, that you won't wait. It's not because you want to go forward. So now I will do something. So see, whenever the TT use HOS, you should use your EE right away or whenever it's recast. And I don't do it. I wait way too much, and at this point, when he put his second HOS, I don't have it recast, and also maybe it was a bit late HOS because I'm still not in QZ, but I put my EE, and that was definitely a mistake. I shouldn't have put my the second EE, knowing that I put the first one late, or that I'm not under QZ, but uh, um, and you see I won't have it recast to jump on the NPC. So what I should have done, I should have EE much earlier. At this point, should already have EE. And if I notice that the second HOS is too late, I don't EE because you see the distance that I gain with the second EE is only half the cast range, and the distance I would gain with those NPCs would be more than a cast range, a bit more. So now obviously lost time. Obviously it's not a big deal, only lost a few seconds, but small thing should have done more properly. So again, at this point, I see a lot of MLK that just run directly to the gate there and wait. That's really not what you want to do, because it doesn't matter if the TT doesn't have recall on you, but unless you know for sure that he doesn't have recall, you don't want to do that. The reason is that this group might be a bit far, and you can see even there, like the compass is not that far. So, and you want to let the TT have plenty of space to move and go take the group. And if you stand to the gate, he might have to wait, which is definitely you're losing time doing that. And if he's not paying attention, he might even break his recall by accident, and then at this point you're losing probably 30-second more. So to give him enough space, there's no reason for you to go to the gate right away. So at this point, there's different way to kill this group efficiently. Generally what you want, well, what you want for sure is to kill them without having them casting any grand balance. I will miserably fail at this point. And I'm not sure why, because generally the way I do it, I choose to do it this way in the video because it's a very easy way, very consistent. So I wonder if it was because of the ping, because I was playing with like 500-600 ping, and maybe I wasn't able to cast fast enough my wastrel, or maybe there's other stuff, but generally it's very easy. There's no mob around, so you can just cast wastrel, tab cast wastrel, tab cast wastrel with echo, like crazy. Not care about anything else. Just go on tab wastrel, tab wastrel, tab wastrel, and they will generally die without casting anything. The other thing is that I might have been a bit unlucky and cast like let's say 2 or 3 wastrel on a mob that didn't have any enchantment, and then he casts his skills, and then I lose the wastrel go away, and hence I don't do enough damage. Otherwise, the other thing you can do is at this point, pretty much, so you have to fill it for sure, but you cast few wastrel, and and at this point, you start casting your E-Surge because you want to cast your E-Surge before the mob die, otherwise it will get cancelled, and just finish them with E-Surge because it's a raw damage. But you see, I won't do it, and then 2 mob will be alive, and then I think there was only one. I cast a Signet, and it doesn't even kill them, was very close though. And then, so that was a bit of time loss. Could have been much better. So, yeah. In fact, we never made any computation to compare the different way to kill it. So it might it's not necessarily obvious which way is the best. For sure, the just spamming withdrawal is very easy, but it clearly didn't work in this time. So now, as MLK, you can do something. Again, that's something we never computed, so there's no evidence necessarily better, but you can go on and put some withdrawal before N to boost a bit the damage. Um, it I feel it's rarely very relevant because if you spike too early and like you see, typically I could have very well put a wishroll on the back on the Unger back there, but we still have to wait for them to get in the group and the E will still trigger on them. So it's not clear exactly if it's really better, but that's something you can do if you want, at least to boost your damage. So yeah, so that's something that will happen, I think, on the last wave, if I remember correctly. But you see, there was one Augur left, and I start casting. You see his HP. I start casting my mistrust. Very important when there's an Augur to off damage like that that is just off at the end. You really want to put your mistrust to avoid having him casting him grand balance because otherwise he get like half someone HP and that can really slow it down. So at this time I didn't have the time because it was very fast. So typically you can again waste roll there. I think it's a bit worse now with the AI update that happened 2 years ago because if you're too much forward, the Fin will probably target you right away and they might not even pull it. In this exact case, they didn't even pull it regardless, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. Um, but at least when there's only hunger or only melee, it's not a big deal. So you can clearly see here when I pop my water supply how slow it is. So yeah, there was definitely quite a lot of ping there. So that's the hunger wave. That's typically where I could use the waste roll to do more damage for free without much risk. So that was definitely a very slow spike. I wonder what happened there. Probably the VOR was a bit too early. Uh, Although it's not obvious, might have been just someone not spiking. Always hard to tell. So at this point, there's something you can definitely do. Is you can see the fiend, the leftmost fiend, the fiend from the left uh, cover, I guess, is like at this point I was definitely looking at it, and you can see that the way it is, I knew he will put it. He would pull in or be with the other fiend, which means I didn't need to off damage. But you can always, especially if it's very much to the left, for instance, if the left group pop very far, you can always put the empathy. It can be quite useful to do it. Um, but at this point, it wasn't a big deal, so just Echo do a lot of damage on the main ball. So you see, typically, yeah. So that's what I was talking about. See, I put my mistrust. I don't want him to cast Grand Balance because otherwise he can really heal himself by a lot, and it's a lot of time loss. So now I go to the Derv Lord. The TT should have recall on me. So again, I don't stick too much to group because what happens if they break? There can be a lot of different situations, so you don't want to stick too much and fail. So small thing there, very important. I probably explained it in the IU video if I made one. I think I did. You don't want to take the aggro of the tendril too fast because the tendril is the same type of mob as the other. Maybe not the same type, but at least what happened is if you take the aggro of the tendril while the other mob are still very close to it, so in range, uh, you can have a share aggro with this group, and that is very bad. So you wait a bit, and you see they are far enough, then I can run through. So now, since the TT has recall on me, you want to stay in range of the TT. Always pay attention to your compass. Now it was quite, he probably, I think, HOS or DC. So maybe I should be even a bit closer, but regardless, train not that risky. He had a very far spawn, did use the triple stun target to do the pull. Because of that, I noticed that he was quite low HP. I know he played with dash, although at this point you see he's very far from every mob, so it's not too risky. But what I do is see I move backward a bit. The reason is that if you need to break very fast after the Underlord broke, I don't want him to break very close to where he was and not lose the aggro on all this metal thing, and then he will pull everything on us, or he need to die, or it get very annoying. So I stand a bit further back. It's the IU job to do the pull, and then we play safe and etc. So that's definitely you see we have three mob. The IU didn't put a really good kitty. I think he will kitty the hunger, and that's obviously the consequence of doing a pull with the dash whenever it's a bit far. You have to pop a triple stun. The mob were very spread out, three break, but it's obviously not a big deal. We are three mesmer. So now at this point, the way you kill the Underlord, so Underlord, even though they are melees, you can very well put your backfire on him because he used enchantments. It's a Dervil. 245 damage is absolutely crazy. So the way what you will generally do is put backfire empathy. The IU will put is PI, and then you will let the other underlord will run on you, and whenever he's kills, he will use an enchantment that do zone damage. So right there you will have 245 plus 105 times 2, right? The PI damage, or 102 actually, I think. But regardless, it's no 105, yeah. But regardless, so normally the IUCE overrun me. That was definitely a mistake. I think he was trying to break the hunger. It's really not a big deal. You can definitely deal with it. Uh, but but Cruz did stand there, so it was still very efficient. And you see like the amount of damage I did on this Dervlord was crazy, with empathy doing 98 damage every hit, plus probably a 245 that happened, plus yeah. So at this point again, unless the trench tank is very low HP, I don't think it's a good idea to EE like that. The reason I was EEing was to troll him, and the reason is if you EE at the exact right time and he breaks his SOH, you will spawn there and you will have to die. So unless you do it on purpose, because you know everyone experience it can be quite risky, because that means the TT has to do the pull without a recall target up, and then the IU res you, and only when you're res he can break. So yeah, it's maybe not the best thing to do consistent run, but it's funny. So if he's full HP and you don't want to do that, you shouldn't EE him, because you see he break there is so now we run forward. Same thing with the tendril. Even when we go back, it's obviously up. Now we'll do something quite interesting. I see he already uses Imlad on the Fiend, so I will stop there and I will E him when he's max range, and see at the same moment he's casting a skill, so you can break it by taking enough space, which is kind of funny, but it's not a big deal if that doesn't happen, although you would really need to break it. So now I will explain that a bit, because that's one tactic that IT is doing. I don't know if other guild start doing it by now, but for sure if you're running with IT, we do it. So the TT will spawn a distant tendril. You will take the front group, go in the safe spot. You will take the back group and bring it back. Note that, okay, so the way you bring it back is, you see, I always keep a good range, but not too far, because I don't want to break them. So see, at this point, I see they don't follow right away, so I stop a bit, I move a bit left, right to not go too fast, and then I keep about this range, because I know they won't break with this range, but they will never catch me. It will leave me enough time to get in the spot. Note that it might happen if the Iwi was put at the 5th or 6th wave, they will probably aggro the EOE and like kind of glitch, because some mob will aggro, some mob will follow. It's still very easy to handle. Don't care about the overall group, just care about the closest mob. If all the mob except one go and attack the EOE, you don't want to wait if one mob is following you. You do the exact same thing as I did by dealing with the range, but with the closest mob. So for instance, if every mob, even the closest mob, goes to the EOE, you don't run right away. You get back a bit closer, or you can even take a longbow and attack with a longbow range, and whenever you see they start running to you, then you run back. You just want to play to not break them. It's not the biggest deal if you break them. It can be quite annoying for the TT, because he has to use his IU earlier, take more damage, maybe he has to HOF, maybe he can get stuck, and so on. So now you can see I will swap on my shield set and put a water supply. The reason is that the TT told me that he did pull the patrol back there, so I will have 1, 2 group plus the patrol group plus the 2 group there, so it's 5 group, so I can take a bit more damage. It turns out that it's maybe not the best thing to take the patrol. For sure, if there's a spirit in the patrol, spirit tormentor, you don't want to take it as TT, because they will come back, and they follow when there's 33% speed boost, and they will attack the MLK, so it's a bit more risky, especially if there's two, it's very risky. But regardless, for other reason that you will see actually in this run, you probably don't want to take this patrol back there, even if it's in range and there's no spirit. And you can see that's exactly there. You see the golem overrun. And apparently it turns out that it's not that rare. And that's, I think, the reason I will pop the direct kebab. It's not the end of the world. The golem don't do much damage. So the way what you want to do in this case is just put a backfire on the golem. You remember it does a lot of damage on him. Put an empathy, again, does a lot of damage. And then you just kill him with E-Surge Signet. Although you probably should wait until he casts Enrage before putting your Easter Signet, because when he's Enraged is the moment he does the more damage, so that's the moment you want to kill him faster. Before he's Enraged, he won't do any relevant damage. But regardless, I was quite lucky. He ran back, and then he ran again, and he got stuck. So turns out to go very well. Could have been bad though. So at this point, I will show again the tactic with the waste troll. At this point, it's a bit harder and you have to be careful because if you just tab like crazy, you will end up targeting the Tormentor back there. And if you cast waste troll while targeting the Tormentor back there, your character will run to them. And then you will unglitch everything, you will die, then have to recover, lose time, and so on and so forth. So every like maybe 5 or 10 tab, you should really press C back to restart the um, the rotation of tab. So now at this point, I will show again the thing with the tab, waste roll, tab, waste roll, tab, waste roll, which is maybe the fastest, maybe not. Again, no evidence to support any of the two. But at this point, it's a bit harder because you don't want to put waste roll on the golem. And if you pay attention to the top, I will skip the golem. It's definitely a bit harder. So you can see what I will do. I will put 4 waste roll while skipping the golem. At this point, I don't put a 5th waste roll because you see whenever I put my 4, they go very very fast under like, or maybe it's not 90, it's actually probably 75% HP, and they cast Enrage. And I wait and then put back my whistle on this guy, then press C, restart, skip the golem again, and then just go on and spam all my whistle, and you see it's crazy fast. Um, but you can again finish with E-Search if it's a bit safer, or Signet. It's like Signet on the golem since he has an engine. So now a small detail, you see this group is pretty far, I can go it very safely, but if this group is too close and you have to take the aggro of either the Tormentor up there or the group up there, don't take the aggro of the Tormentor, just take the left and run through. Even if you take the aggro, it's not a big deal because they will start going around, and as soon as you pass them, they will break anyway, so they won't get in the tendril. Note though that especially with IT, I don't know if your other guild does that, and also depend on the TT, but the TT might tell you just go from the top, because if the group is very close, it's not a big deal to go, but it can be a loss of time when you come back. So for this reason, you can indeed go from the top if the TT tell you to do so, or that you can do it, and just spike the Monk Lord from the top. So when you can come back, it's very straightforward. So at this point, Cruz had to pop the Hunger, so obviously he died, took a bit more time, and for this reason, I had the Echo recast. But regardless, even without Echo, it's not a big deal. It's much more important to have Echo, I think, for this group there. So now I will explain the rotation that I use. I think it's the best by quite far, although again, no evidence to support any of those. It's only a feeling. Um, but I will go a bit in detail to explain it. So just to explain the general idea of the Monk Lord. So the Monk Lord is quite particular because he's using Revert of Fortune, which means you cannot just out damage his heal, right? By being a single mesmer. So for this reason, that's actually one of the main reason why you're bringing Backfire is to kill the Monk Lord. And you do it because if you put Backfire and the guy is casting Revert of Fortune, the Backfire will probably actually out damage the heal of the Revert of Fortune, which means over time you will kill it. But you have to be a bit careful because Monk Lord have Smite X, which means he can remove X, a single X though. The whole point of the Monk Lord is to damage him while he has Backfire up, and by controlling the Smite X so he doesn't remove your Backfire, because if he remove your Backfire, you cannot really do anything until the recast, and it's 15 energy. Finally, the last thing that is important to know, I think until is under 80% HP is not using Revert of Fortune, which mean the backfire won't actually do much damage. The backfire won't be that useful. The backfire do damage on doesn't trigger on Enrage, doesn't trigger on Signet. So and generally the Monk Lord, especially if you kill fast enough, will never cast his like Zealot Fire or whatever that's called enchantment that he has. But if the TT doesn't have Shadow Form, it will cast Spear of Light, which does trigger the backfire. So for this reason, you generally want to only put the backfire when it's at 80% HP. That's the at least theoretically the best because that's the moment where you start casting Revert of Fortune. So that's the moment where it's useful. Moreover, when if the Monk Lord has a Wastrel on him, that's X. So he will theoretically want to cast Might X, but if he, for instance, if he casts Revert of Fortune because of Rachel, it will also remove the X. So that will explain my rotation. So you see I put Echo, but it's absolutely not required. Very important. I start with E-Surge Signet. You cannot do two E-Surge because if you do two E-Surge, it will go under 80% HP and it will start casting his Revert of Fortune, which is you really don't want that in this case. Then I follow up with Voice Roll, and because he doesn't cast Revert of Fortune, he will choose to cast Might X, and that's because he was over 80% HP. So then, whenever Smitex is done, he will heal himself a bit. So see, 85% HP. Again, he won't cast Revert of Fortune right away. That's why I start up with Empathy. Then he do one Empathy, and he's at 80% HP. And while I casting Backfire, so that's the moment when he start actually using Revert of Fortune. At the moment where he start, that's the moment when he get the backfire. Then I just damage him. Since I had 2 E-Surge, I choose to do 2 E-Surge, but otherwise it would be E-Surge Wastrel. And then obviously it was quite good because he cast Spear of Light though, so that was another 245 damage. But you see the amount of damage that this last Revert of Fortune. There's 245 from Backfire, 98 from Empathy, and 133 probably from the Signet, right? So that was extremely fast. I think by far it's the best way. But regardless, if you fail that, don't stress. It's not a big deal. What you can do, which is very safe, is you do damage and let's say you see that he casts a Revert of Fortune. Don't try to waste too much energy. What you can do, you can just go very safe, put an Empathy or Mistrust. Probably Mistrust is theoretically the best, but not a big deal. And you will cast Smite X, and you won't be able to remove Mistrust or Smite X any other way. Actually, it's probably better to some extent maybe to put Empathy, and the recast is very fast because he could remove Mistrust by using Spear of Light. But anyway, and then it will remove his smite text, and as soon as he removes his smite text, just put backfire, put back empathy, and you will see it's very easy. It's slower, but definitely very easy and safe to do it this way. Just very important to not stress out and start casting any skills, any useless skills, and just not being able to off damage them. So at this point, you see I can come back very easily. If that group was too close and I didn't went from the top, there's different way you can approach that. Either the TT recall you, then pull away probably the Tormentor, but could also pull away the right group, and then you can run through easily. Otherwise, both of you can run through together and just pass this from the right, and then you will aggro the top right. And whenever you pass this 2 Terminator, you can stick the left side and stop moving forward, and this group will keep running a bit like that, and then they will break and come back, and then you can go through. Um, very important though to communicate. So at this point, I will explain the technique to kill the Tendril. So it's actually a pretty bad build to kill the Tendril. There's barely enough damage to kill it in time. If you have Imlat though instead of EE, it's much easier. And the reason is that you can RUP is slash. And the reason you want to RUP his slash is because which will do a lot of damage if it can be there for a long time. If you don't rub his slash, it will always cancel. And I think now it was actually very close, and I think it might have been because of the ping, because it might have been a bit hard to put the wastrel directly after the slash, and hence I think I was losing 1 tick every time. But you see, the idea is that you want to always put the wastrel as soon as the slash finish to do the maximum amount of damage. And between those, you want to use E-Surge Signet, and it with your wand. So for this reason, you really want a wand that is Q9 domination and that is personalized to have the plus 20%. So see the slash n, I want to put my waist roll right away. And you see the waist roll wasn't triggering much. We didn't lose much HP, but yeah, regardless, I was still able to do it in time. Note that the monk has PI, so especially if the monk is a bit experienced, it might be good to just tell the monk, oh, can you put a PI, and then like do not stand on me, just put PI and let me deal with the damage that will that will come from the slashes that hit me. That can very much help you. So at this point, you're the only mesmer that can actually use Echo Surge, so really use that. The TK might actually play with Mimic and have a E-Surge, but for this run, that's why I help a bit. I even think did a bit of split, but yeah. And you see very clean 6-0, very easy. If it was synchronized, the two side came pretty much at the same time, so it was very easy 6-0 to do. And the off damage was good as well. So at this point, probably want to dodge a bit more than I did. I think again that I made it a bit hard to control that very well. But um, so at this point, small. That's just a common knowledge that's very important to have. If the two mob there aren't there, so if there's not two mob there, that means the trench isn't pop, which means if you run through like crazy and you see the guys are still there, you will pop on them, and that's very bad. Obviously, at this point, the group was pop. We killed them earlier, so we can go through. Note that the monk did ping me, so maybe pay a bit more attention to the chat, or maybe you should actually talk on TeamSpeak. But regardless, you should wait a bit so he can EE you. I think I will do it at this point, yeah. And again, there was no patrol, so we didn't have to kill them. That's because it was pulled before, but normally you will have a patrol. So at this point, it's normally the monk job to go trigger. Obviously, the guys was there before, so there's no reason to not do it. If you're there, if you're the first, you can also do it. No reason to wait there for nothing if you can go trigger earlier. Let the tank jump up there, then so now you have to be a bit careful. Look what the tank will do. He will ping who he is recalling. If he's recalling you, don't run like that. Make sure to stay in range. Very important. Be careful. Be aware. He should definitely. He will probably tell it on TeamSpeak as well. So again, I didn't rush like crazy because I noticed the emo was there. I didn't want to take aggro, but if the emo is not there, you should definitely take the aggro of the earth to kill them. So then you go on. After that, you kill everything. Very important to go with the other mesmer to kill everything there because you want to give you want to let the monk being able to put his EOE, and if there's mob, he won't be able to put his EOE, and you might not have EOE for the relevant spike after. Um, so yeah. So now at this point, you don't want to use echo for this group. So again, don't stick too much the emo. The spawner is already random and he will move a bit. He will speed boost. You don't want to take the aggro before because the mob one might actually follow someone else. It just make it worse. So spike without EOE, very easy. Then I pop the Tengu because we're spiking the two group there on spawn. Note though that so that's interesting. When you have a Tengu that is a healer, he will start running forward to heal the guys because he wasn't full HP. There's several ways to fix that. Either you just don't care because at some point it will come back. Either the emo let the monk or let the Tengu heal him, or he go full HP. But yeah, regardless, it's not a big deal because anyway, it doesn't do any damage. So at this point, the spawn was very good. So for this reason, I choose to not use backfire. I actually almost did it. You can see my mouse went over backfire. I hesitated because I saw the earth was still alive. But if the spawn is bad, you should very well put your backfire on the art to enter. So see, that's the case there. I should probably have put it a bit earlier than I will because the spawn was terrible. But like the first one should very much have a backfire, and you see like I do it maybe a bit late. The MLK has tremendous possibility to really off damage some kind of mob, notably the casters. So when they are solo, like the TK is good for off damaging ball when there's a huge ball because the EW will trigger, but when there's a single mob on the 4 mob, the MLK is probably the best guys to do it. Note that normally the TK should recall the IU there and it will run in and so on, do the recall tactic. You can go see the IU or TK video to get the explanation. Note though that always be careful. Maybe the TK will ping you. Maybe the TK will recall you because he's maybe not aware of the tactic. Maybe he's playing with a guild that recalled the MLK or maybe for any reason. So if he does it, just be aware and instead of running to the north, run to the east to do the recall tactic. So again, you can go see the TK video to see the IU video to see what the job is. Um, or maybe the worst would be that he doesn't say it on TeamSpeak, doesn't ping, but still recall you, and you can still see it because you will have like this small pink thing over your head. But at this point, he didn't recall anyone. It was a bit slow reaction, but at this point, he still does it. Because if you don't notice or and so on, and then the guys break there and the tank break there, I mean, it's a huge loss of time for no reason whatsoever. Obviously, that's TK fault, but still worth it to do a bit more than necessary. So now at this point, something that is quite important. I popped the Tengu. It might be the Vor that popped the Tengu. Um, But if you have a bad Tengu you want to kill it, it's very important to not kill it on the shadow mob that are there. The reason is that they are very close to where you're spiking the Lightbringer and the Darknesses, and it does happen. In fact, we already fell a 20-minute quite casual because of that where the guys did aggro the Tengu on those shadow mob, and then the shadow mob went on us while we were doing the Lifebringer and the darknesses. So for this reason, if you want to kill them, I didn't want because I had the Necromancer, which is pretty good, but kill them on the right group. You can actually even tell the empty, can you pull a bit further on my stone? See, there at this point, it could very well just pull a bit further to the south and to make sure to kill the stun, and then you can pull with the longbow on them and then keep running. So not on those guys because you're spiking there, you might not lose the aggro. So at this point, very important, I was the first one. I go trigger the group to not lose more time than necessary. It was a terrible spawn. Obviously, we don't spike. I target the Mind Tormentor. I think I explained it probably in the TK video and probably even the IU video and maybe, who knows, maybe in the VOR video if there was. But I target the Mind. I put my Mistrust because he always casts the skills. And you see it will get triggered. That was a 182 damage on everyone more for free. Very important that at least one person does it. So now again, very important. So now we with IT we are spiking on spawn. Some guild pull pretty much where the the Iwi is there, and the Iwi is a bit more to the south. But very important, don't be conservative over the damage. After the darkness is 3 spawn, you want to do it fast. If you don't do it fast, everyone will lose more energy than necessary. You will probably be the one getting spiked instead of you spiking the darknesses. And you have plenty of time after that. There's no reason whatsoever to keep energy at this point. You will have to either run Foundry or the run will be over like this time. So Echo, E-Surge, be sure to do a lot of damage. You don't want to be conservative whatsoever. So now, very important, since the AI update, the guys do like spawn a bit everywhere and move. Don't start spiking too early. Let them settle. I see a lot of Mesmer do the mistake of spiking whenever they see the enemies popping, but the problem is that they generally lose a lot of damage because for a moment the darknesses just like they move a bit randomly and don't necessarily take even damage and so on. So for this reason, let them settle. So I'll let them settle. At this point, all the damage I do it's on everyone or at least 4 darknesses. And at this point, I'll also do manage damage. So we want to even out as much damage as we can see. So that you see I change a bit the target to the damage on everyone. Um, and you see the darkness almost die instantly even though they were quite spread out. And again at this point you go on and do off damage. Every mesmer with E-Surge should actually try to do off damage on the corner or on the edge rather of the earths, and the VAR will do the main damage anyway, and everyone will die with Ewe. So that was pretty much it for the MLK video. I think it's a very fun job to play and that have a lot of potential. A lot of difference between a very good MLK and a bad MLK. You have the potential to help a lot on a lot of spike, especially the mob that are a bit out. Obviously, when you do that, you lose a bit of damage, but you still do more for the team. So that was it, and have a good day, I guess.